advantage already exist, because if you look at it in terms of the disclosure requirement, there is far more extensive disclosure required of a listed company than in the case of an unlisted company. So if whether this will act as a dampener on companies which are unlisted and they may wish to list themselves, I don't think so, because there are already enough disclosure requirements, and people and promoters will have to be very careful in terms of making a decision whether they want to list the company or not. And the element of disclosure is something that is always discussed when companies are in the process of listing. There are other advantages of listing if the management feels or the board feels that the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages in terms of the additional disclosure that are required, then they will go for listing. Well, I mean, I agree, but if you look at it, if there is a very critical matter that impacts the accounts or likely to impact the accounts, there's always a disclosure of that, possibly in either in the notes to the accounts, or sometimes even now, if it is significant, the auditors do point that out in their audit report in terms of emphasis of matter. They can refer to the account notes. Yes, this is an element that will have to be looked at, whether the amount or the number of CAMs, if a company gets listed, would be so horrendous that they may not want that to be out in the public, then they will have to give a very thorough consideration in terms of the reasons as to why they wish to list themselves.
I see Khalid Rahman here. Khalid Saab, you have any views on this? You waved me, so I said.
Thank you very much, Farooq, for noticing me. I think this is a revolutionary change that we are seeing. And as we all know, that this has been a debate for the last couple of years. Finally, it has been adopted in terms of revision of the audit reports, where the engagement of the auditors is highlighting the key business decisions of the management. And also, another thing probably which Aksaran may have covered earlier today was also to review the future business plans and projections and give their views and reports on that. I don't know whether that still exists or not, but when it comes in that form, originally when it came in that form, that was required to be done.
No, not part of this standard at the moment.
Not part of the standard, okay. So I think something that will evolve in the future is giving comments on terms of the future of the company also, and I think that is the next step that the profession and the audit report will be moving towards. I think the auditors are conscious of highlighting the key areas in terms where they are necessary as a matter of emphasis, but I think that will come out more clearly in terms of emphasizing key business decisions of the company is making and giving a view or comment on them. So it's a paradigm shift, and I think we need to all be ready for this. Whatever has been done after elaborate dialogue and discussions, consultations. I had been part of that process, so I'm a little bit aware of it, and I think looking at it from more an international framework level, this has come out after a lot of consultation. This is required. So I think the auditors have to be a little bit more alert in terms of the business decisions that the management is taking and commenting on that. So I think it's a welcome move. Although they are initially, we all face a lot of issues, problems in terms of putting it into a practical shape and form, and there will be a lot of debate, dialogue. There will be obviously requests for increase in audit fees, immediate fees. So these are the few pitfalls that we would have to address going forward. But I think it would be well spent, and I think it's a welcome change, and I look forward to bring it to it logical in the form and in the spirit in which it has to come.
Okay.
From the auditor's point of view, I can confirm that this comment was not prompted.
Okay, thank you. Last. At the moment, the report of audit committee is not mandatory. It's only the director's report.
Which are already doing it, probably this report will also include this thing. Maybe Mr. Saran can complete.
No, the important thing is, I think the requirement is from the shareholders want to hear it from the auditors, independent auditors. The company can spell a lot of information in the annual report. But what is important is, what is the independent auditor's view and their insights and their description of the matter, which is valued more. So the idea is for the auditors who have independent look at the business should share their thoughts and views and insights with the shareholders, rather than company, which certainly can provide a lot more information in many different ways through the annual report. So actually it's an independent view which is more important.
Okay, last question. Amin.
I have one regarding the audit matters and the uncertainty in the public sector and qualification. So ICAP and SCCP, in designing the format, that how qualification and the matter of emphasis should be, subject to committee audit matters as well as the uncertainty report in the audit.
Yeah, I think they are all reported under the format under separate headings. So it's very clear if there is a qualification, if there is emphasis of matter, or is a key audit matter. So as the format in the standard itself, it's very clear under separate independent headings. Regarding the, educating NAB and FIA is quite a difficult task, because the problem is that, the readers of our report are normally are expected to have a basic understanding of the accounting and the financial systems. And the investors who are the real users of the reports normally have that understanding. But investigating agencies have their knowledge of, forensic knowledge of a particular case and the methodologies they apply to investigate, and doing so, they look at various public information. And if they misunderstand something, I think it is a primary requirement for the investigation itself to refer to that experts before interpreting something which they take as a primary source of evidence or something to allege anybody. So what I am saying is that even for the investigation agencies, they cannot just simply rely on the auditor's remarks without consulting with the experts and the auditors.
It triggers, the sharing the sensitive information
it triggers, certainly, it will get highlighted, it will get some attention, but I think, in my personal view, the worry is not from the investigation. I think the worry is from the tax authorities, because that is a real challenge because the tax authorities have that inclination to pick up things from the accounts and then twist it in their own direction. So actually, when you share a lot of insights and key audit matters and about accounting policies, sometimes judgments applied in certain accounting related matters, that can be picked up by some taxation officers and applied in a different manner to gain some advantage. So, this can create some issues, real tax issues, when it gets to reporting to the tax authorities.
Maybe that is different with working with
So I think your comment is valid. I think we have initially agreed that it will be a challenge how you finalize your wordings in the report. So the information that is coming out should be a very clear information and should be clear statement, should not be leaving any doubts kind of a thing. I think we have all, before we conclude this question answer, and our president will conclude this session, just wanted to highlight one matter, and that we have not probably emphasized more. I think key audit matter we have amply discussed. Another thing which is very relevant for the listed companies is auditor comment with regard to the other information. Because for private limited companies, it may not be that relevant because the other information, the annual report is not really in that form. But for listed company, it's a thick report that goes out, and that forms the other information part. Now for the auditor to make a specific comment, and within that comment they have to make the statement that what information was available at the time of signing of the report. And there may be information which has not been made available at the time of signing of the audit report. So kind of this wording, if the auditor is leaving that kind of a statement that this information has been received and certain information has not been received, may be perceived to be a negative remark. So from a company or listed company standpoint, people would, I would expect, kind of, in a hurry to finalize the other information. So I think that is another matter which people have to keep this on radar, not only the key audit matter. So I think with that, we close this question answer session. And again, thank you both, Arslan and Feroz Saab. Over to Zulfikar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Farooq, for a very detailed question and answer session. And thank you, Feroz Saab and Arslan. I'm sorry I had to interrupt because of, in the interest of time, otherwise this could have, on the topic, this could have gone on for hours and hours. Question and answer sessions always remind me of an Urdu sher I thought I would share with you. सवाल ये था कि हुस्ने यार कैसा है, जवाब आया कि जवाब नहीं. So, okay, I would now like to request Hafiz Muhammad Yusuf Saab, the President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, to please come on stage and share with us his thoughts about today's session.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respectable CEOs, Chairman Audit Committees, CFOs, Senior Executives of the Corporate Fraternity of Pakistan, my council colleagues, my colleagues from the SRC, my colleagues from the ICAP executives, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, let me thank you for taking time out to understand this very important and sensitive issue, which is we all are facing as professionals, as auditors, as ICAP, as industry, all over Pakistan and elsewhere. And I think with a very knowledgeable presentation made by Arslan Khalid, Arslan Khalid, and also very valuable comments made by Rizvi Saab and followed up by very valuable discussion by Farooq Rahman and my all colleagues, so I mean all that debate which was going on, I understand would have given you a lot of insight about this new development. I would also be sharing with you a few thoughts, both from the international perspective and also from the perspective of Pakistan. and also what challenges we are facing at ICAP. But before that, the matter was so dry and so sensitive, so I would like to share a joke with you, before I would be sharing my comments with you. The joke is like that.